The only thing I like better than Slamdance is MIRVISH'S dance. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore, joined as always by
Anthony Ray Bench.
And we're here for a very special episode of the Film Threat Podcast. We are live. Actually, we're not live. I mean, we're live right now as we record it, but you're listening to this after it's we're at the Arclight Cinemas in Hollywood on Sunset Boulevard.
Hollywood. Away from home.
Yes. Yeah. A long way from Pasadena.
A long way.
And my kitchen. No. Here we are at the Arclight and about to enter of the premiere screening of my very good friend, longtime friend, Dan Mirvish. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Anthony. Right, that's
Anthony.
Anthony, hey.
Anthony. It is his name.
It is.
You can ask that on the show.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me, Chris.
Yeah.
It's always great to be on.
Well, this is like the second because you did an episode of Pod Crash with me.
Yes, that's right. I did.
Yeah, that was which I'm
5
sure.
years ago, probably.
Yeah. Which is erased from the internet. I think it's wiped away.
It's still there somewhere.
Is it still there
somewhere? Someone on the Googles has it.
Yeah. But your film, Bernard and Huey.
Yes, that is my new film called Bernard and Huey.
It's premiering tonight. It did screen at Slamdance.
Yes. It screened at the Slamdance Film Festival. It's a closing night film there.
Now, how did the screening go? Like, what was because always there's like, as a filmmaker, there's that people are going to see my movie. A lot of filmmakers I know throw up. What is your process? But you're not this is not your first, second, or third. This is like, how many?
Roughly my fifth film. Fifth feature, yeah. Yeah. And this wasn't, and Slamdance wasn't the premiere either. It's already played at 20 festivals in 5 continents.
Oh, wow.
Yes, wow. In fact, just last week we won the... this was reported in the Iran Daily News, by the way. We won the award for Best Film from the American Continent, singular, from the Jaipur International Film Festival in India, which was our Asian premiere.
Wow.
Congratulations.
So thank you. So I think we beat out both Canadian and Brazilian films on the American continent to win that award. We won the Best Feature Prize at the Guam International Film Festival, which was being threatened by nuclear attack at the time, and we'd actually arranged for the USO to give 40 free tickets to U.S. service members to the screening.
Wow! Now, what do you do with these prizes? Because when I think of prize, I think of Secret Dakota Ring.
Yes.
So I don't. But a film festival prize, is it a certificate? Is it
the Jaipur one was a certificate? I think, unless I pay them money to send me something.
Or in some cases, is it just an email that tells you won an award?
Yeah, I think so. The Guam one, it was nice. One of my producers was actually there. He's based in Japan, so he was able to go, and he brought me back a big, heavy crystal trophy thing, which was really very nice. Very
How do you
lovely.
even get that in your luggage?
I have no idea, but he somehow smuggled it into the States. Well, it's Guam, it's America, kind of, so you don't really have to smuggle it.
So now, as an award-winning filmmaker,
all it takes is one award, and you become an award-winning filmmaker for life. Yes.
You get to put the stamp on the DVD case and everything.
Exactly.
Yes, the laurels,
right,
as they're called, the laurels.
Yes.
But so now that you've completed your festival run effectively, and
we still have about 10 more festivals.
Oh
at least.
My God!
I know.
How many festivals?
It'll be over 30 when all said and done. Yeah.
Wow! But I mean, the festivals are a great way to promote the film.
Yeah.
And you are a master promoter.
Thank you.
You because the thing
I learned it from you, Chris.
Well. Here's the thing I will say. You don't need money for great promotion. You need a really interesting and unique concept, and more than any other filmmaker that I know, you are like the ringmaster of brilliant marketing concepts. So give us a little insight into how you've decided. Well, first of all, we should talk a little bit about the movie, because the
Bernard and Huey.
Bernard and Huey, yes, which is based on a Jules Feiffer book. Right?
Not exactly.
Okay. Jules Feiffer. You should explain who Jules Feiffer is for those
who don't know. Yeah. Jules is a Oscar, Pulitzer, Obie winning, amazing writer and illustrator. And by the way, better than an EGOT. If you win a Pulitzer, an Oscar, and an Obie, that's a poo. which is, I think, better than EGOT, more unique. But yeah, he's most known for writing a cartoon strip in The Village Voice, which was syndicated around the country, actually around the world, for 44 years. That's what he won the Pulitzer for. But as a screenwriter, he wrote Carnal Knowledge, the Mike Nichols 1971 film with Jack Nicholson and Art Garfunkel and Candice Bergen. He also wrote Popeye, the Robert Altman film, as well as Little Murders that Alan Arkin directed, and a couple other things. And he Bernard and Huey were characters that were in his cartoon strip that date back to 1957 in The Village Voice. And then in the early 80s, from 82 to 85, he had a regular cartoon strip, 6-panel strip in the back of Playboy magazine because, everyone was reading cartoons. And that was called Bernard and Huey. Based on that cartoon strip, Showtime commissioned him to write a screenplay. The week he turned it in, though, they changed ownership and their whole business model. They went to like boxing and comedy or something like that, and they never paid him for it. So there was a producing partner he had at the time, a guy named Michael Brandman, who might be at the screening tonight, by the way, who said, okay, well, let's try to pitch it to the studios. Studios didn't like it, and then it sat on a shelf for 30 years and just disappeared. Poof.
30 years?
30 years. Yeah, because he wrote it in 1986. And then I came along. Funny you should ask.
Yeah, wait a sec. Yeah, how did you get connected? Because I do know that strip from Playboy.
Yeah.
I mean, his.
You were the one who read the cartoons.
I am the one who read the cartoons. You know what? I read it for the articles.
And nothing else.
Yes, nothing else.
And
I
nothing
skipped
else.
right to the cartoons. No, but his art style is very distinct.
Right. Yeah, he was also the illustrator on Phantom Toll Booth and all kinds of other books, and wrote his own books too.
But how did you come to the project? Which was the question you were going to answer
exactly.
before I even asked the question.
Exactly. I'm that good of a podcast guest. So, Chris, if you recall, the last film I directed, and last feature was called Between Us, which was a adaptation of an off-Broadway play. It had Julia Stiles and Taye Diggs and David Harbour and Melissa George, and that one was kind of a drama because it was supposed to be a comedy, but nobody laughed, so we called it a drama. Anyway, Carnal Knowledge was a bit of an influence on our tone and style for that. So while I was in post-production on that film, I was just Googled up Jules Feiffer. I was like, oh, what happened to the guy who wrote Carnal Knowledge? And sure enough, he's alive and well. He just turned 89, actually, a week ago. Lives out in the Hamptons. He teaches. He writes graphic novels. He's written like bestseller graphic novels now. He's still writing plays. Anyway, in this interview, I read this interview with him online, and at the very end, it said he had several unproduced screenplays. And I thought, well, here's a guy who's won a poo. Whatever these screenplays are, they're probably good. So I emailed him out of the blue. Said, hey.
Wait, back up, just pause for a moment. I just want to hit pause. How did you get his email?
It wasn't easy.
Okay, good. I want to hear this story. I know this because there's a lot when you hear a lot of interviews about entertainment stuff. There's a sort of glossing over of details that I think are interesting. How did you find his email to even email him to ask him about his unproduced screenplays?
Right. I tracked him down through a speaker service. Some speaker agency or whatever, that books him for, speaking. I think I emailed them, and they gave me his email. But it wasn't that hard. It was like it only took like 2 weeks and like 2 chains of email. Ooh, here's our popcorn chicken.
Although it's interesting, Dan, that I see that you're eating eating a Cliff Bar.
I am.
I just want to say,
just in case,
you don't have to eat those because we're not in Park City anymore. You don't have to. They taste like sawdust.
I know.
This is, if I could do the anti-commercial for Cliff Bars, they taste like someone put sawdust and water and mushed it into a glob. Yeah. We sell globs of sawdust. That should be the
that
Cliff
should be
Bars.
Their motto.
Yeah, we sell globs of sawdust. They're disgusting.
I ate many of those damn things. Park City,
yes.
You have to, because you never know when your next meal is going to be at a festival.
That's it. And
you're either going to have an amazing meal or nothing.
But always go for the protein. So you've ordered the popcorn chicken, which at the Arclight, my favorite
it's pretty delicious,
is the hot sauce, is the best.
Well, there you go.
It's the best one. Yes, you have a whole setup here. So we're multitasking. Because you have to do the red carpet in like 30 minutes.
Yeah. Now, there was one other little connection.
So how did you get the email? So you went a speaker service, and you got his email, you tricked them.
I did. Well, I did have another little trick up my sleeve, which is that one of my producing partners, if you may remember, is a guy named Dana Altman who lives in Omaha. Now, Dana was Robert Altman's grandson. So Dana actually worked on the set of Popeye in Malta when he was 14 years old, which was hanging out with Robin Williams at 14, and actually probably met Feiffer at the time. Popeye was, there's a whole epic story of what a failure that movie was, but it was an epic failure,
Right.
So anyway, I knew that. We kind of thought that Feiffer was still had been friends with Altman, and so there was a little bit of that connection, but it didn't really help. It didn't make that much of a difference. I think he took us a little bit more seriously once we found him, but it didn't help us find him. Anyway, but we reached out to him and said, "Hey, Mr. Feiffer, we're these guys. What's up with these scripts?" And he said, "Oh, yeah, I think I got some scripts, but I've been divorced so many times, everything's in storage. Try me back in 4 months, and maybe I'll have something for you." And we were like, "Oh, okay."
He didn't have it on the hard drive of his computer?
Nope.
Did he have a computer?
No. So we said, okay. So 4 months later, I checked in with him again. There's that Cliff Bar coming back up.
Right.
I checked in with him again, and he's like, I still haven't found anything. Try me again in 4 months. And this went on for a year and a half. And over the course of that time, I actually met his daughter, Hallie Feiffer. She had a film at Slamdance. She didn't know anything about these screenplays. And finally, my friend Kevin DeNovis, Kevin,
yes,
another Slamdance filmmaker, he knew I was having this correspondence with Jules, and he said, "Oh, I think I remember reading one of these screenplays." And I go, "Oh, Kevin, really? Where?" He said, Scenario Magazine in the late 90s. It was this magazine called Scenario Magazine.
I do remember Scenario Magazine.
Yeah, it was around for a while. It would publish mainly produced screenplays.
Explain to the audience, what is a magazine?
I know. It's this thing with paper and staples.
Oh, my God.
It's crazy.
They used to make them out of trees.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So bad for the environment.
Anyways,
yeah. So it would publish mainly produced screenplays, like, I don't know, Big and Indiana Jones, but every now and again they would have an unproduced screenplay. And Kevin had a subscription to the magazine. I know. And so I said, "So Kevin, where are your copies of the magazine?" He goes, "Oh, well, I just got divorced. They're in storage. I don't know where anything is."
Divorce is a thread.
It's a horrible
this
thing.
Is an odd thread.
And there was another filmmaker friend, another screenwriter friend, same thing. He had it, was divorced, archives in storage, didn't have it. So, but the one library in America that had the thing was the Academy Library, just a couple miles from us, on La Cienega, opposite the Larry Flint building, your old building.
Wow,
the old building. You were staring.
Ye old offices.
From your old offices, you could have stared right at this magazine. Anyway, so I go go to the Academy, read the magazine, and I read Bernard and Huey. And it was this amazing script. It was funny, and I felt it was timeless and timely, both at the same time. So afterwards,
questions about
yeah. Oh yeah, there's more. So anyway, I called Jules and I say, "Jules, I found it. Bernard and Huey." "Oh yeah, that's the one, Bernard and Huey," because I didn't even know what I was looking for most of that time. He said, "Oh, but I think what you read, I think my assistant sent them an edited version of the script. What you read may not have been the whole thing. It may have been the abridged version." I said, "Well, great. Let's call your old assistant. Maybe she has like a floppy disk or something."
Right.
"Oh no, she's dead." I go, "Oh my gosh,
I was going to say SideQuest Drive, but
no. She's. I said, "Well, that's horrible news." I said, "What about your agent? Your agent must have a copy." "Oh no, he's dead too." I go, "Oh, well, that's horrible. I'm very sorry to hear that." I said, "But your lawyer must no longer among the counted. He is dead." And I was like, "Wow,
okay.
That is horrible news." But thankfully, we've tracked down this old producing partner of his, Michael Brandman, still very much alive, still married as far as I know, because he had his archives. Took him a couple of weeks, but he got his hands on the original hard copy of the script, or the full version of the script, which was great. But then, interestingly, a couple months later, we were still tracking things down. We found that Feiffer had actually donated part of his archives to the Library of Congress. About a dozen years before, I'd forgotten about that. I sent a buddy of mine in D.C. to go there. He found the original handwritten copy of the script because Jules always had the dead assistant to do his typing for him. And so we got a copy of the handwritten copy of the script, which was pretty amazing. Yeah.
All right. So that brings you to the project.
Yeah. Popcorn chicken.
How do I? Okay. So I want to get to the casting, right? So let's not forget to do that.
Right.
But when the movie, when you're reading the script, what was there rewriting involved? Because what's weird about this movie is, let me just explain, because it's about kind of a something of a rivalry between two friends. One friend has a very different view of romance in his relationship with women, and the other one is, I would say, the opposite.
Yeah.
Right. So these two friends have very different views of women and relationships and how things function. So what's weird about the film is the first 5-10 minutes of the movie, I'm watching this going like, oh my God, in the wake of how things have shaken out in the world with Me Too and everything that's going on, I'm like, oh my God, this movie just feels like out of time, like out of date. And then as other characters are introduced, it feels way more timely. So the characters themselves have kind of outdated attitudes,
right,
because they're older, and the younger new characters are very progressive in their thinking. And you made this before any of the Me Too or any of this stuff happened. So it was what I find the most, to me, the most compelling, one of the most compelling things about the movie, the discussion point after, as people go see this, thinking it's a delightful date movie, and it is. It is a delightful date. In aspects of it, it's a delightful date movie. It's also an opening for a conversation because it's like these outdated old attitudes contrasted with progressive new attitudes. So how much of that was present in the original screenplay? It's a long question, but very important, because this really struck me watching the film. I'm like, because I was cringing at the beginning.
Yes.
I was cringing a little bit, and I think you did that on purpose, didn't you? You fucking ass.
There's
I knew you did
cringing.
It on purpose. I was
it is
cringing.
cringeworthy.
I'm like,
a cringeworthy movie. Can I put that on the poster?
Yes, cringing. And then as other characters are introduced, it's like, oh, this is to be in contrast to
exactly.
So tell me, how much of it was rewritten, because it just feels very contemporary.
Right.
And
so the original script, as I read it, was written in 1986.
Right.
And the contemporary scenes, these two characters, these two middle-aged characters, Bernard and Huey, are set in 1986, and then and those scenes are largely based on the Playboy. Hey, Peter, on the Playboy cartoons. There were flashbacks in the original script to 1960, which are, and those with the same two characters as kind of these young post-college characters, and so, hang on, do you want to introduce the special guest?
Peter Baxter. Special guest. Joining.
Yeah,
throw a microphone.
Throw the mic. This is Peter Baxter. Is one of the other co-founders of Slamdance.
No,
we have a special guest. The whole point of a live thing, Anthony, is crazy things happen. British people show up. Hi, Peter.
I'll drop in for 30 seconds.
Yeah, drop in. We can share microphones here. Peter, thanks for joining us.
Give me a chance to eat a popcorn chicken.
Well, thank you for being here.
I appreciate it.
Moderating Dan's film this evening here at the Arclight.
No one would ever accuse Chris of being a force of moderation.
I'm going to speak 2 sentences at that, and then just let the cast and Dan go. You know how it goes. So
there's a very close relationship with the microphone.
Yes, he does. As
Peter moderated my Q&A at closing night.
But it's
I didn't let him speak
Dan.
at all.
You just throw him a softball, and then he just goes. So wait. So do you have some business to talk about with Dan? Talk about it on the show. Talk about it on the show. This is live.
Anything horrible happening?
What's the business?
The message really is that I think this is Dan's best film to date.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to put that on the poster.
Oh, wow.
Dan's best film to date.
It's a really impressive feature film, and I'm sure it's going to look absolutely great and sound great here at the Arclight.
Yeah.
It really is an amazing accomplishment, and of course, as we know, Dan really knows how to make a budget sing in every single respect, but here we have something which is just classically independent for 2018, a really well crafted independent feature, and of course it got picked up at Slamdance.
Yeah.
And
can you talk about that?
Yes, it got picked up at Slamdance, but it will be released in May by Freestyle Releasing, which is part of Byron Allen's Entertainment Studios. It's going to get a theatrical release and all kinds of digital stuff too.
Awesome.
I'll just add, one of the things that actually Dan doesn't like to speak about, as I found out in the Q&A, is the craft that he has with actors. He works extremely well with actors.
Okay.
And he did not have a long time to prepare for this production.
60 years.
But well, your
I only
rehearsals,
came in.
I'm talking about your
the rehearsal.
with the
Rehearsal.
actors.
But we did 4 days rehearsal.
Wow.
But you really, when you see the film, you think that he must have spent far more than that. But he did a really excellent job with the performances. Performances are great.
Well, thank you. Well, part of it. This is something
You just
I learned
came over
from,
here to say that. I think. I mean that you didn't have like.
Do you need money?
Hey Dan, you
or
need to
anything?
like. Where do I get my parking validated? There has to be more of a thing that you had to talk to him about.
Peter,
you came here to
do you
say
need
to
the
pay a
VR box
compliment?
on your head?
You could have. You got to see the Dan Mirvish VR. It's very.
Peter knows it quite
Mirvish
well. It's
VR
been on
is-
Peter's
We've been
head.
down this road before,
Yeah.
Chris.
Well, I was complimenting Dan earlier about just how he's sort of the ringmaster. He's the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Mirvish of promoting independent film, because you really have like creative ideas. You've always got some creative hook to promote something where someone could have $1 million budget, but you'll have $100
But
idea.
I'm the
that's better than
idiot
that.
throwing
No,
raw meat
no,
at the
I'm
audience,
serious,
literally,
I'm
which
serious.
I have
Yeah.
done. So.
You're right on with that, and
Yeah.
the preparation, right, in making that successful. He's very quick. He's a very quick guy, but I think that's part of the secret, isn't it, of making a successful independent film, is the preparation that you can put in. You may not have a very big budget, but usually you actually have a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right.
And like we saw at Slamdance this year, the successful filmmakers in their marketing efforts were those that had really thought about what they were doing before they came to the festival. They really took in. They listened probably to Dan. They've done preparation of what it means to come to Park City, and it's that preparation.
Well,
of course,
and
this is where you did have 60 years almost of preparation.
It seems like it, yes.
with this film.
But part of it is taking your patience with going back to working with actors with casting. Like, you don't just take the first two actors that are available that agents throw at you. You say, no, I'm going to meet with them. I'm going to see if this person is right for the part, and then you take your time.
So
you don't rush it.
Because the cast is great. I mean,
Yeah, they really are amazing.
Keckner and Jim Rash, like, amazing. But I'm sure when, say, Scott Baio walked in the room, that was a no. Like, maybe, I mean, I don't know. Maybe you worked with him. Maybe, I don't know.
It was a
but
tough
maybe
call.
that was-
It was
right,
a tough call,
right.
but
I'm thinking
eventually
that
had to
was-
go with someone else. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, this is, I think it's. I mean, the cast is fantastic.
Yeah.
So how did you come to the cast? Like, as an indie filmmaker, you're like, how would you like to do something where you put all your energy and effort and years of experience and make almost no money, and you might get some Cliff Bars?
Well, I explain how to cast in my new book, The Cheerful Subversive's Guide to Independent Filmmaking.
That's right. You could.
What?
You could,
How
look
could
at
I
this
do
movie
that?
plug, book
And as
plug.
Dan does this, and you continue the conversation,
Yeah,
I am going to now serve Dan furthermore by setting up lights for the photographer.
Oh,
who's
okay.
going to come
Oh,
and-
great. Okay, I'm
Okay, see, I
glad
knew
you
you
didn't
had a
say.
reason,
I'm glad
so
you
I knew
didn't
it
say
wasn't
the
just a
word. I'm
compliment.
glad he didn't say serve me subpoena. So
right.
That would
No,
have been
that's
awkward.
our president. But anyway, so
thank you,
yeah,
Peter.
so he
Thank you for
needs to
dropping
go over
in.
there. What? We got like another 10 minutes.
You
No, we
got
got
some
time.
good time.
Okay, we got some time. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
do you need-
All right.
so,
Well,
Peter,
thank you,
I have
Peter, for
this
joining us on the
poster.
show.
Thank you, Chris.
I
And then-
appreciate it. No, thank you for this. Is Anthony Ray Bench, co-host of the
thank you.
Film Threat
I will hand
podcast.
back
Peter
the,
Baxter, one of the Slamdance
Peter, do you
legend
need
founders.
Posters. It's up to you.
More practical.
Yes.
Exchanges here.
Yes. And then this one is mounted with a handle. It's like so
You can
It's
actually
like
bash people in the
Captain
face
America's
with it.
shield
Yes.
in the form of
Of a
an
poster.
indie film poster.
Every
That's
poster needs a
exactly
handle.
what it is.
Well, you remember
So-
when I had Omaha the movie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Peter.
And I
Peter
wore-
Baxter, everyone. Big hand.
Very good, very good.
Thank you, Peter.
Very good. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter.
You remember I used to wear a sandwich board in front of the Sunset
Oh
Five.
my God! You've always had
for
like,
11 weeks.
the best
Jeez.
marketing ideas. You're so. I mean, we did this thing where we put magnets on the side of my buddy's car and drove to Sundance to Park City. And they just said "Film Threat sucks."
And
on
the
the side of the
hats.
car. And we did hats.
Yeah, but you
We-
put a
we
hat
spent
on a
like
car and it's going to fly off.
We spent $200 on marketing.
Not if you use a lot of tape.
Yes.
Right, $200 marketing Film Threat in Park City, but you also have brilliant creative ideas.
Okay.
You're like the DIY craftsman of marketing for indie films.
Thank you, Chris.
So maybe give us a greatest hits of some of your marketing concepts for films of the past. And how you intend
I
to market
literally
Bernard-
have thrown raw steak at audiences.
Wait, why did you do that?
Why not do that?
That seems...
It's a little expensive, but it was for Omaha the movie because there were
Omaha.
because there were
Omaha
cows.
steaks.
Yes.
Now I get it.
I've also thrown raw corn at the audience, which, by the way, smells a little better. People are a little
Right.
more adept at catching corn than
Yes.
beef. Between us, we would make milkshakes before screenings because if you
And you would
remember,
give milkshakes to the
we
audience?
would give milkshakes to the audience, 'cause
Okay, so
especially in
that's-
Park City because the screening room is so hot. But also, it was
right.
thematic to the movie.
Oh, so you look for some element of the film
Yes.
where you can include something very simple that is memorable to the audience. Your
Exactly.
movie will stand out.
Yeah.
Look
Yeah,
at that.
it does have to be thematic to the movie in either tone or content,
Right.
which was tougher with a drama, but we found a way.
Now, before Peter Baxter rudely,
So rudely.
it's you know
Hey,
what, you
he's
can't say
British.
rudely because with the
You
British
stole my
accent-
mic.
He did.
Yeah, but
Poor Anthony.
it's not rudely because with a British accent, anything sounds nice.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, yeah, I feel like so he did not rudely, but he came up and interrupted the podcast. We were talking about
He pot crashed you.
in a way he did. Yes, a callback to my failed podcast from years ago. But so we were talking about did you rewrite the script for Bernard and Huey because
Right.
parts of it felt like from another era in terms of how men perceive
Right.
women, and then another
Not.
sort of thread of it felt much more progressive. So how did you? How did that work? Was it rewritten?
Well, thematically, most of that's in the original script.
It is in there because
Yeah.
it didn't seem
It
that
really
way.
is.
It seems like some of the movie took place with another. Like I felt like so. I'm wrong.
So-
is what
You have a character that's very misogynistic,
Yeah.
and then a character that's very, I guess, kind of sensitive. And the misogynistic character is very successful with women. And then you fast forward, like, a few, like, what was it, decades?
Yeah.
And
25
then
years.
The sensitive one is scoring all the time, and it kind of shows, like, the shift in culture.
Yeah.
Like,
But that, thematically, that's all in the original. So, right. So the original
all
script
of
was.
that is in because
Yeah.
I'm really surprised. Like this, I feel like what's interesting about the film is how relevant it is now,
Right.
to the conversation that we're all having.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's shocking to me that this was written in 1986.
Yeah, so it was, but you have to keep in mind, Feiffer was ahead of his time. That's why he was popular in the 50s and the 60s and 70s and the 80s, 90s now. He was, he was a politically subversive cartoonist. That's why I won a Pulitzer Prize. And the themes of feminism go back to 1957. I mean, they started in the early 60s. He was dealing with those kinds of characters then. I mean, he talks about how Bernard and Huey are based on, and I think Bernard is a little bit based on him, but Huey was based on a guy he knew, in the East Village that would, dress like Brando and, hit on these, women from, Vassar and Barnard and, who were these progressive women. And what he was always struggling with was the irony that the most progressive feminist women would always fall for the thugs, and that was in
the
his
asshole.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that was, and then that theme just kind of keeps going through history. It doesn't really change, same thing in the 80s. But it was interesting, and he told me that the cartoon he did for Playboy was specifically, he was making fun of, he was satirizing the kind of people that would buy Playboy magazine without them knowing it.
Great.
Yeah, sorry. Except you, Chris, the people that read it for the cartoons. But from a practical standpoint, when I read the script, I said, it's hard enough to make one period movie, much less two period movies.
Right. So how'd you adjust it?
So I said to Jules, do you mind if we just move everything up 30 years, basically? And he was fine with that. And so he and I kind of worked on it together.
So
and
those okay, and then
Yeah.
just a side note, the casting of the younger versions
Yes.
of Bernard and Huey,
Yeah.
perfect.
dead on.
Thank you.
Like I don't know how you did it, but they're so dead on in their mannerisms, speaking. How did you pull that off? Because it's weird. So it's like, so kind of like that's happening in the 90s, and then the present.
Yeah,
day is
that's
the present
right.
day.
So
Is that
that's
about
like
right?
1988, pretty close.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
the flashbacks now are to 1988, and part of it is also.
So how did that cast like?
Well, we cast the main guys first, David
Right.
Koechner and Jim Rash, and then we looked for actors that looked like them. But then you narrow it down to like 10 actors that look kind of like those guys, and then you audition them, and then you meet with them. And then, as Peter said, we did 4 days rehearsal, and you'll see those guys tonight. Jake O'Connor and Jay Renshaw were terrific young actors, and they would literally shadow the other two guys for 4 straight days during rehearsal and just get those mannerisms and pick up on them, and vice versa. They would influence each other.
So wait, did you shoot the scenes in the past after you shot the main scenes?
Most of them, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It just it's a really good bookending to so many of the conversations in the film.
Yeah, thanks. And we shot those on Super 16 film, by the way. So
Wow,
old school. But remarkably,
People still shooting film.
I know.
I'm impressed.
No, well, yeah, the rest of it wasn't, but those scenes were. But the interesting thing was how little we actually had to change the script. Just in terms of plot, language. I love the original language, the kind of the hipster jive that that Huey especially speaks, because I think language is cyclical. Like when I was in the late 80s, when I was in college, I would speak like a beatnik because that's what was our influences, and I still say hip to the scene, man, and can you dig it?
I still say hey man, and I say chicks.
Yeah,
I know.
like,
I say chicks. I don't know if.
But
saying chicks
it's
is
because in the
cool
80s
anymore.
it was ironic, and then now it's post-ironic or whatever. So the point is,
I don't know.
language does some funny cyclical things, and so we wanted to just keep the language, and and it's Feiffer's language. You want to keep that rich. So. The interesting thing in terms of plot, there's a couple little things we needed to change, but a lot less than we thought we were going to. I think if we had made this, or someone had made it 15 years ago, the characters would have been, web designers, and it would have been very digital, and this and that and the other thing, and it would have you would have had to have changed the plot a lot more. Because things are now back to the printed medium, one character wants to be a graphic novelist. So
I love that thread.
Yeah.
I love that thread.
And that's exactly
really
what
pays
Feiffer
off,
does
too.
now, too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, is it really reflects his own career, too. Because in the original script, she wanted to, this is Huey's daughter, wanted to be a cartoonist in the Village Voice, and Bernard worked at the Village Voice. So that's the relationship there. Now that he is now a graphic novelist at 89, that's exactly what a 20-something wants to be. So in a weird way, it all worked nicely.
In the film, there's some interesting illustrations. Were those Pfeiffers?
No, they're not.
Okay.
No, they were Emily, who I think may be coming to the screening tonight. She was my next-door neighbor's niece.
Oh, wow.
And they said, can she intern on the film? I said, yes. She will be illustrating penises a great deal. So that was a little awkward, but it was fine. She had a wonderful time.
The one
She
with
was
the hanging. It made me
Yes,
laugh out.
but the illustrations are described in the script, in the original script, in quite detailed. So she knew exactly what to draw,
She
just
can
based on what
check one off
Feiffer.
the bucket list, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, no, because it's in the script, Feiffer describes them in a R. Crumb style.
Oh.
So I literally showed her. She didn't know who R. Crumb was.
Robert Crumb.
I know. So I showed her those illustrations, and she was able to run with those. So yeah.
Nice.
But in the end credits, you do see Feiffer's original cartoons.
Now, I realize that you're about to have to do a red carpet.
Yes, thank you so much.
We'll see you on the red carpet
you, Anthony.
and
Thank you,
at the
Chris.
Q&A. And congratulations on Bernard and Huey.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. That goes on the poster too.